This morning, what we want to do is give you a quick review of the reality check and the purpose behind what we're doing. Give ourselves the repetition, because one of the things I've found for sure is repetition is the mother of skill. If you meet anybody who's really good at anything, it's because they've done that thing over and over and over again until they don't have to think about it anymore. How many of you, for example, again, are confident in tying your shoes? Can I see your hands? And you're darn good at it. You're a master at tying your shoes because you've done it so darn many times. And anytime you meet somebody who's excellent at what they do, it's because they've done those boring little fundamentals over and over again until they don't have to think about it. And the elements of communication that we talked about the last time we were here are things you've got to really master for a lifetime. They got to be things you do over and over again. And you really got to develop for yourself a checklist that you go through every single time you do it. Using the metaphor again that I offered you, I think, a couple seminars ago, of flying. Anytime I want to go fly in my jet helicopter, to have that privilege, I got to be able to pay a price, and it's not just the price of the helicopter or my insurance or fuel. It's a price that every single time before I take off in the wild blue yonder, I got to go through a what? Checklist. And the reason is not because I don't know what to do. The reason is because it's so darn important, I can't afford to leave anything out. And when two human beings get together, or more importantly, when a group of human beings get together for a common purpose, to try and make a difference and try and at the same time grow themselves personally and grow financially, there are going to inevitably be times when there are challenges. True or false? True. All right, that's just the way things work. As we found out last time, a lot of things get in the way of normal human communication. So I thought it might be good for us to do a quick review of our notes, and I'd encourage you to jot down your notes. And those of you here for the first time, it'll help to catch you up a little bit on the basic philosophy of how we communicate and make things work amongst groups of people. Because one of the things I would say up front is that quality communication creates quality results. That unless we have quality communication, we aren't going to have quality results in our practices. We're not going to see it in helping our patients. We're not going to see it in ourselves. We're certainly not going to see it in the profitability of the practice and therefore profit sharing for most of you. So we really want to develop that level of quality communication. And what we've talked about in the past is we've got to be able to communicate in a quality fashion. Number one, with whom? Do you remember? With other people or with yourself? That's right, because one of the things we found is a lot of times we don't communicate well to other people because we don't even know what we're really feeling ourselves. We don't even know what we're stressed about. Or we know we're upset and we're angry about something, but we don't know what it would take to clear it up. So we go to somebody else with our upset or with our anger, and even if they wanted to help us, they couldn't because we don't have a quality request. We don't have a way to make it clear to them what we really need or what we want. And so we've developed tools for you to get really clear about what's really going on, what do you really want, and what we're going to refine this morning is how to respond back in a better quality way. Because one of the things that we found in working with some of you and doing some of the coaching is that some of you took this process that we did and did extremely well with it. Some of you took this process with it and developed it into a 30-minute story as to why you weren't doing things. And so what we want to do is create the balance today so that this communication process not only makes you feel good but produces results. So let's do a quick review. The last time we were here, we asked the question to start the session. And that question was, what's the purpose of communication? And we came up with all kinds of answers. You guys told me things like, well, the purpose of communication is so I can make a difference. Or I communicate so that if I communicate, I can get what I need. Or by communicating, I can have impact. I can change the world. I can impact my patients. I can impact my fellow staff members. Some of you said things like, well, I communicate to get love. Some of you said, I communicate to give love. Some of you said things like, well, gosh, I guess I communicate because I have to survive. What are some of the other reasons? If you weren't here last time, let's take some examples. What are some of the other reasons we communicate? You guys tell me. To be happy, which is one of the things we moved in the direction of. Absolutely. Why else do we communicate? Pardon me? To express opinions. Good. Why else do we communicate? To feel better. In fact, when we went through this whole list of things, if you recall, we said that we communicate for three primary reasons. Let's do a quick review. First reason we communicate, I don't care what it is, whether you're communicating to have impact, make a difference, make more money, survive, whatever the case may be, you're doing it for three reasons. One, you're communicating because by communicating something, it makes you feel good. Or it makes you feel even better than you're feeling. For example, how many of you, when you're excited, want to share that excitement with other people? Let me see your hands. Why do you want to share it? Yeah, because it makes you feel even better by sharing it, right? It like feels good inside of you, but you share it with more people, and wow, it feels even better. Right? It expands it, okay? So the number one reason we communicate is to feel good, or to feel even better than we're already feeling, to amplify our positive feelings. Why else do we do it? When you're really angry, how many of you like to communicate it to people? Let me see a show of hands. Yes, and we don't always communicate it very effectively. Sometimes at our anger, we can say things or do things that can really harm the relationship. How many of you have ever seen this happen? I know you've never done it, but seen it with other people. Can I see a show of hands? That's right. So well, why is it that when we're angry, we want to communicate to other people about it, those of us who do? Some of you just shut down and don't communicate it. But a majority of you like to communicate your feelings. So when you're upset, why do you want to go communicate? Because why? It relieves tension to communicate. Okay, what else? Which, by the way, when you say it relieves tension, what does that do? It takes you from feeling lousy to feeling a little bit better, maybe, right? Why else do you communicate to when you're feeling lousy? What does it do for you? Yeah, it's a cry for help. One of the things we learned out last time is that every response that a human being gives us, even though it may not look like it, everything people do is either a loving response or a what? Cry for help. So can somebody be real angry and still be in a cry for help, yes or no? Yeah, because we found out last time that when people are feeling really angry, what they really are feeling is, do anybody remember? Hurt. And they feel hurt because they have a sense of what? Anybody remember? A sense of loss. When we have a sense of loss, we feel hurt and then we get angry about it inside. And so the bottom line is what people are really doing when they're angry or upset with you, what they're really doing is they're crying for help. But what do most people do when somebody comes out there crying for help like this? What do most people do? They respond to a cry for help with a... That's right. And so you have two people that are like yelling at each other, and what they're really doing is crying for help from each other. But they don't notice that, and they keep making things escalate and get worse and worse. The point, though, is the reason we communicate when we have negative feelings, or want to at least, is we think that by communicating we will feel what? Better. That's the bottom line. And what's the third reason we communicate? And a major reason why you communicate often in the practice, to create a new result. Right? We want to create a new result. What we're doing right now is not good enough. Or it's good, but we want to go to the next level. And so the purpose of the communication is we want to take whatever's happening and make it better. We want to create a new result. But I have an important question for you. Why do we want to create new results? Why do you want to make the practice better? Why do you want to help this patient more? Why do you want to be more efficient in this? Why do you communicate creating a better result in those areas? Why do you want to do that? Because you think if you create a better result, you will feel what? Feel better, feel good. So again, what is the purpose of communication? As a reminder, the whole purpose of communication always comes down to one thing, which is to what? Feel good. That's it. It's a reason. Now, is it important to remember why you're communicating when you're in the midst of an argument? Like in the middle of an argument, you're going back and forth. Would it be useful to say, what's the purpose of communication? To feel good, and then ask yourself, is this working? Would that change your state a little bit? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yeah, you better believe it. So what we want to do is remind ourselves what the purpose is, and that's to feel good. Now here's the challenge. It's to feel good, but also, is it possible for you to communicate in a way that makes you feel good and other people feel bad? How many have ever experienced this? Okay, so how can that happen? Give me an example. How could you be in a position where, you know, you understood the purpose of communication was to feel good, so sure enough, you communicate in a way to make you feel good. Who got left out of the cycle? Person you're communicating to. So I have a question. If you communicate in a way that makes you feel good, like gets over your pain for the moment, what makes you feel good in the moment, or righteous, or whatever the case may be, but it makes them feel bad, will you feel good long term? No way. And by the way, not only will you not feel good long term, but the other person will have an investment in making sure you don't feel good long term. Right? True? So what they're going to do is they're going to get back at you. Now they may not say that, they may not think that, but do people sometimes do it unconsciously? Yeah, you better believe they do. So our goal then is not just to make sure we feel good, but to make sure that we feel good and that person feels good long term. That may mean in the moment it doesn't feel so good, but at the end of that communication, it's got to feel good for both people. That's the only way you're going to feel good long term. Now, one of the reasons that we're in this business together in the form of being in the practice that you're in is also this is a vessel for producing results. You want to help patients to feel good, true? That's what they came to you for. Now, many of you are in professions as healers, let's say, for example, the dentist in the room, where some people don't want to come to you because they're afraid if they come to you, they're not going to feel what? They're not going to feel good. So that their brain keeps going, but this hurts, so which one's worse? My imagination of going there or this physical pain? And when the physical pain they have is more than their imagination of how bad it's going to be being with the doctor or the dentist, that's when they show up. Now, many would agree with me on that one. So it's weighing the pain, isn't it? And so our job then is beginning to help people to feel good and associate to being in an office feeling good. So they want to come back more often. Because everything we do is to feel good. Now, whether you drink or smoke or eat, or whether you exercise, or make love, or you connect, or you contribute to other people, or donate your time, all those things you always do as a way of changing how you feel. It always comes down to that. You don't want the things, you want the feelings. But in this practice, we've also got to make sure that we don't just sit around and communicate and all feel good together, look at each other and go, ooh, doesn't this feel good, right? We've got to also produce results. How many would agree with me on this? So what we want to do is communicate in a way that makes us all feel good, create an environment that makes us feel good, but also produces results. That's really what we're after. So why are we doing this process of, for example, reality checking and the staff meetings where you're going through and giving these quality requests and quality responses? Well, we're doing it to achieve that goal. And that goal, very simply, is to produce results. Why are we doing this process? The commitment of the process is to produce a result in a quality environment in a way that makes people feel good long term. The whole purpose of doing these meetings, these sessions, is to make sure you produce results, not just you feel good, that you produce results out of those meetings that create an environment you guys are working and living in every single day that nurtures you, that makes you feel good, that makes you grow and expand and feel excellent. But it's got to produce results as well. How many would agree on that if we're going to make this thing work? So in order to do that, what we need to do is review a little bit about how to make that process work. How do we make sure that things make that work? And the goal, of course, is to make the patients feel good, because if we make the patients feel good, i.e., we get them healthy, we get them to the next level. Some of you aren't getting them healthy, some of you are taking the next level. Some of you are working in sports medicine, where you're amplifying what's already good. Some of you, for example, going back to the dental field, for example, you're doing work with people and bonding and things like that. That's not really to make them feel good physically, but to make them feel good emotionally. Our goal is to make the patient feel good. Who else do we need to make sure feels good? Staff's got to make sure we got to make sure the staff feels good, because if the staff doesn't feel good, will the patients feel good long term, yes or no? Do people pick that stuff up when they show up in your office, yes or no? You can count on it. Whether you want it to or not, it comes through at an unconscious level. Because most of us, remember from the first session we talked about, most of us think about communication in terms of words. That words are what communicate. But words are the smallest part of communication. Do you remember what percentage of communication, when two people meet, what percentage do words play in actually influencing how that person feels? 7%. When two people meet and they're face to face and they're communicating and they're trying to convince or persuade or influence another person to do something or feel a certain way, words play the smallest part. What plays a bigger part? Voice plays the next biggest part. Voice qualities, your tonality, your tempo, all that plays a much bigger role than just what you say. And that represents 38% of what influences people. Now, when you're stressed, does it come through in your voice, yes or no? Yeah, you better believe it does. And people pick that up. They don't even know what's going on. All they know is they don't like it and they want to be around it. Okay, so it's not so much what you say as it is what? How you say it. And then thirdly, what's really critical for us is the way we use our physiology. Our posture, our gestures, our facial expressions, all that communicates much more than our voice or our words. It represents 55% of human influence. So when we are stressed, the first place it shows up is not in our words, but in our facial expressions, in our breathing pattern, and the tension in our body. And it also shows up in our voice. They pick that up on the telephone, they pick that up in our person. That's why we got to create a quality environment, because if we're in a quality environment, we're going to have quality communication. If we have quality communication, we're going to produce quality results. And we're going to experience the quality life that we're all committed to. That's what we're after. So our real goal then is make sure the patients feel good, the staff feels good, and results are there. We produce results that produce rewards that we're really after in the practice. So communication is the critical element in achieving the goals. The quality of your life is going to come down to the quality of your communication. What's our goal then? First of all, we got to remember what prevents this from working. What prevents people from communicating well? First of all, how many agree communication is the base of our success? Let me see your hands. That's it. So then the question is, what prevents that from happening? Number one is stress. When people get stressed, do they communicate the same way as when they're feeling totally loving and warm? No way. Okay? And the last time you were here, I had you do an exercise where you communicate to each other what you did when you were in stress. Do you remember that? We all have patterned ways of responding when we're under stress. Okay? Different ways of responding. And some people, when they're under stress, deal with that stress and communicating with other people by getting intense. That is, amplifying their voice, getting louder and gesturing harder. Other people, when they get stressed, they snip at people, right? They don't do it like, it's like they're really nice. Just for a moment, they get you, okay? Oh, I see the people who those are right now. Everybody's looking at them. Oh, yeah, you in the office. Yeah, you do that. I recognize that. Some people, when they get really stressed, like break down. They get overwhelmed and cry and stuff, and people go, oh, shoot, I didn't mean that. I'm sorry and stuff. Some people, when they get stressed, what they do is get silent. They just get real quiet. Some people, when they get stressed, like, cut you off from the rest of the world. It's like, no, I'm fine. It's fine. Just go ahead. Do it again. It doesn't bother me. Okay? All right. Everyone's got different ways of doing it. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to close your eyes for a second. And I want you to think about a time you were stressed and you communicated in a rather unresourceful way. Okay, a time when you're stressed and you communicated with your fellow staff members, your doctor, or doctor with your staff, in an unresourceful way. Okay? And then see how you did it. Like, for example, what did you do verbally when you were under stress? What did you say? And what was the volume of your voice like? And what were your facial expressions like? Look at your body now. When you were stressed communicating this way, what was your face like? That's right. And what were your gestures like? Did you offer one finger or more? Okay. Were you gesturing like intensely at this person, or were you downtrodden? What was your posture like when you're in the stress state communicating in an unresourceful way? Okay. And how would other people have categorized you at that time? Would they have said, gosh, what a wonderful human being? Would they have used the B word? Okay. Like, boy, what a nice person this is. Right? How would they have described you at that? If you were other people watching, how would you describe yourself at that mode? The other question was, in that mode, if you were the person hearing the communication coming from you, would you want to help this person? Or would you be a little upset with them by the way they treated you? Now, with your eyes still closed, think of another situation. I'd like you for a moment, just think of a time when you were communicating and somebody did something and they couldn't do what you asked them to do. You kept asking them to do what you want to do and you got angry, so you tried to get some leverage on that person. Some leverage to get them to follow through. How do you get leverage? Do you threaten people? Do you demand? So you do this now? Do you just increase your intensity? Do you cry? Do you whine? Do you nag? I'll get leverage. I'll just nag them and nag them and nag them and nag them until they finally do it. Right? Do you write notes that have interesting little connotations associated to them? Right? Do you try and get other people to gang up on this person and get them to change? Okay? How do you honestly, in the past, before you were the resourceful human being you've become today, okay, how did you used to try and get leverage on people when you weren't getting your way? Okay? And ask yourself, if you were a person who you were trying to get leverage on, if you were that person looking through their eyes, how would you feel about your tactics? Everybody together? Oh, one more time. Interesting. Now, think about this third idea. Think of a time when you were stressed, but you communicated in a powerfully positive way anyway. You're stressed, but you still communicated in a very positive way. In other words, it was an effective way. It's a way you were proud of. You were stressed, but in spite of being stressed, you still communicated in a way that supported people and accomplished the goal of communication, which is to cause you and the other person to feel what? Feel better. Feel what? Good. So think of a time when you were stressed, but in spite of being stressed, you communicated your needs in a way where they felt good and you felt good, and it produced the result. When you can think of a time like that, say yes. Yes. Great. With your eyes closed, think about that experience and notice the difference. First of all, how were you breathing in that situation? Was it different than the one where you were trying to get leverage? And were you breathing different than the one where you were really stressed out of your mind and communicating poorly? Raise your hand if you were breathing differently in this situation. Fantastic. Notice the difference in what your breathing would be like if you're communicating effectively, even though there was stress around you. Secondly, what was your body like? How were you standing or moving? Was that different? Was there a difference in the amount of tension in your body or relaxation? Was there a difference in the way you were gesturing, if you were gesturing when you communicated, between when you were stressed out and people were not getting the message versus when you were communicating elegantly? Was there a difference, yes or no? Raise your hand if the answer is yes. Now, notice the difference in your voice quality. Is the tone of your voice different? The time when you were stressed out and the time when you were stressed but you still communicated effectively. Raise your hand if there was a definite difference in voice qualities. Fantastic. Notice, did you feel different about yourself afterwards? In example number one, where you're stressed out and other people were stressed out around you because of the way you're communicating, versus when you were stressed out but you communicated elegantly. Can you notice a definitive difference in how you feel afterwards? Raise your hand if you felt better after the second example, better than the first example. Very good. So my next question is, could you do the second example? Could you use that same pattern of breathing and gesturing and communicating? Could you do that in other stressful situations in the future? What would you need to remember to be able to do this? Better yet, what would you need to believe about communication or about the people you work with? If you're going to adopt a one-sentence belief about people that you work with that would cause you not to be upset with them in the future when things are stressful, or if there was a belief you had about being respectful or loving or warm, what's a belief that you either have already or you could adopt that would help you to really manage your communication in the future if you start to get stressed? And say a sentence out loud. Somebody just said, for example, they have good intentions. What's another one? Say out loud a belief that would cause you to follow through and really take good care of people instead of being stressed with them. Do unto others as you want them to do unto you. Good. What's another one? These people are doing the best they can with the resources that are available. What's another one? There are no unresourceful people. They're just unresourceful states. We just got to change our state. What else? People are not what? People are not their behavior. So, you know, if this behavior isn't working, it's not the person. We got to just correct the behavior, not the person. The person's a great person. What else? Yeah, I could be misinterpreting this right now. Maybe I need you to do a reality check. Okay? Now, what I'd like you to do is open your eyes, and I'd like you to turn to the people that are most nearby you in the office there. And if you've already done this before, it doesn't matter. I want you to do a little repetition. And the repetition I want you to do is I want you to get with a group of at least 4 people. And what I want you to do is one person's turn to the other 3 and tell them and demonstrate for them how you communicate when you're stressed, verbally and non-verbally. But you got to do it in a humorous way where you make a parody of yourself. Here's the reminder. You're getting up and putting yourself, what kind of expression on your face initially? What kind of look? Sheepish look. So kind of a silly, sheepish look. And what are you going to say? In the past, the way I communicated when I was what? Stressed was, and you'll describe it and then you'll do a demonstration. Okay? And the staff will help you if you forget what you're like, okay? Staff, you can help them and tell them, no, show us like your angry one. You know the one, right? Then coach you to it. Second question, so you remember what it is in the past, I used to try and get leverage on people and get them to do what I wanted by threatening or whatever the case may be. Thirdly, the way I think the way you guys probably saw me during those times was, and describe how you think they saw you. And then ask them, how did you see me? Okay? If you did this with us last time where we did the in-depth example of this, I'm doing this again for repetition to remind you what those patterns are, but also those of you who are on staff or the doctor, whoever's sitting in the audience, give them some honest feedback about how they've done over the last 60 days. Have you seen less of those expressions? Have you seen less of that intensity? If you've seen more, say, you know, actually it's increased the last few weeks or last couple months, maybe because, and give them the benefit of the doubt, maybe because of the stress in the office or Christmas or whatever, you know, but just to give them some honest feedback. How many people want to give honest feedback? How many be willing to trust that if you give honest feedback, you won't get like retaliation later? Okay? And the goal of this process, last thing, of course, is you're going to tell them how you're going to communicate in the future and do a demonstration. That if I'm stressed, I'll come to you and say, I need your help. And demonstrate what you're going to do instead. The goal of the process, though, is to have fun. So your job, again, is do a parody of yourself, and on staff is to have fun, not to correct people and say, yeah, you scumbag, that's what you do. Okay? All those want to go for it, say aye. Aye. Go for it. Why are we doing these quote-unquote third-grade exercises? To feel better. That's a good first step, right? First of all, the better you know yourself, the more awareness you have about your own patterns, the less chance of you going unconscious and doing things later on you're going to regret. How many would agree with me on this? How many have learned something about yourself by doing this just now? How many relearned something you'd forgot about from the last time you were here? How many of you are doing better? How many got feedback that you're doing better now than the last time you were here, i.e. the people gave you feedback you've made improvements over the last 60 days? I'm curious. How many have not made improvements over the last 60 days? How many did not bother to ask because you didn't want to know? Okay. Now, the other reason we want to do this is the more we know about the people we work with, the better our communication will be. True? So if I know that one of your patterns, because you share it with me, is to get all shut down in this way, what could I do now in the future to support you without being invasive or taking advantage or anything like that? What can I do to support you? So, for example, if I know Monty here shuts down, and he's already demonstrated that for me, what could I do in the future to kind of tease him and get him in a better state if I saw him in this shut down state? What could I say? What could I do? Give me some examples. First of all, our goal is to break his what? That's right. Our goal always to interrupt the patterns that don't support us. And how many have patterns that don't support you when you're stressed? Great. So we want to interrupt those. And by the way, if we interrupt them enough, we can't get back there. Remember the metaphor I've given you a couple times about the record. What allows you to hear that same music over and over again is this pattern in the record, right, that you hear again and again and again. But if I take a needle one day and I go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, pretty soon that record will never play the same way again. I've broken the pattern. And that's what we're doing here. By adding awareness, you begin to break the pattern. But if also in the middle of their doing it, you interrupt their pattern enough times, they literally, after a while, won't be able to get back in that state. How many would find that to be useful to have your pattern interrupted in an elegant way that maybe was humorous? So tell me some ways you could break the people's patterns in your offices if they're upset. Instead of getting upset with them because they're upset with you or they're mean, you could actually look at it as being humorous. Like, oh, there they go again to that old cartoon character of them. So what could you do? What would you do to break Monty's state? Give me an example. Pants him? Well, he's got an exciting staff here. His staff said he would pants him if he did this, okay? All right, somebody else. It's kind of an extreme, but it probably would work, I guess. You could mirror him. So what if he gets like this, what could you do back? What could the whole office do? If you saw someone in your office was doing this, you could all show up in a person's office a little bit later, and what could you do? All stand there and make the same look. Would that be a good clue, yes or no? And if your office did that with you, what could you do back so that you stayed in a positive state about it? What could you do back? Yeah, you could laugh and say, okay, I got it, and move on. How many would be willing to get together as an office if one person gets in a really unique state and they stay there for a day? How many of you have ever seen this happen in your office where one person got in a kind of unique state? How many of you would be agreeable to the idea that if you all see and agree that person's in a unique state and they're like staying there, that you all walk into there by their desk and mimic them just for a moment with a smile in a loving way, not in a harsh way? But how many would be willing to do that? How many think it probably would work? Because see, when you keep doing something and people don't take it seriously, pretty soon your pattern's pretty broken, isn't it? Okay? Now, the other thing I want you to do is I want you to get good at interrupting your own patterns. So regardless of whether other people come up to you or notice it, or maybe they're so busy that they don't even want to deal with it, you got to be able to break your own as well. So one way to do that is practicing breaking your own patterns. So we're going to do something real quick that also gets your energy up. Please stand up. Face each other. Make a circle. Put one person in the middle. You go, we only have two people. It's hard to put one person in the middle. Join a group of other people if you're by yourself. Now, if you have a big group, put two people in the middle. If you have a big group like, 8, 10, 12 people, put two people in the middle. Okay? At least one person in the middle. If you have a big group, put two people in the middle. Now, these patterns you have are in your body. That is, you respond and you pretty much react. How many would agree with me on this? This is not something you consciously say, I think I'll screw my face up this way and do that. So instead, what we're going to do right now is one final pattern up on this area before we move on to remind ourselves of it, is the person in the middle's job is they're going to dance for the rest of the group. But they're going to dance. They're going to dance, starting out their dance in their stressed state. They're going to put that stressful look on their face and that stressful movements, and they're going to be jerky and gesturing. And they're going to dance that way initially while all of you clap and laugh. Okay? Then after doing that little stress dance, after doing their little stress dance, what you'll hear me say, or they'll do it on their own, after doing that for, let's say, about 20, 30 seconds, their job then is to go into an ecstasy dance. Okay? A dance of ecstasy. Okay, hold it. So you start out doing a stress dance for the first, let's say, 10, 15 seconds. You start out doing a stress dance first 10 or 15 seconds. Everybody else is clapping like, boy, you're the best dancer on earth. Then you go to ecstasy for 10 or 15 seconds. Then you pick the next person in the group, and they jump in and do their stress dance and ecstasy dance. And you guys are to cheer and yell and just cheer them on and be dancing around them while you're standing there in space. Now, let me ask you a question. If we keep ourselves when we're in a stressful state, if we break out of those patterns, will we communicate better and will we be more effective in the office and getting results, yes or no? Yes or no? Yes. Great. Then what I suggest is it'd be really important for us to develop what I would call acuity in noticing what states people are in around us. Meaning both people that come in to see us, the patients, seeing what kind of state they're really in rather than just generalizing. And the people around us really learning to what I call calibrate what state they're in. What does calibrate mean? It means even if they don't tell you, you know exactly what state they're in. So I want to do an exercise in heightening our sensitivity to noticing what states people are in. Because if we know what states they're in, we can help them to change. If we know what states we're in, we can anticipate the way they're going to behave. So I think it'd be real important to do that. So we're going to do an exercise where we're going to basically put you in with a group of people in your office. Now, some of your offices are bigger than others, and that creates a little distraction when we try to do an exercise. Because some groups are done, sitting there waiting, and other groups of people, they got a huge office, they're still going at it. So I like to request that in exercises in the future, if you got a huge office, you divide into 2 on some of these exercises, and then you can share the results. And that if you're not in an office, that you join a group so you can participate, so we can keep something that's well-rounded and that really produces results. All those want to do that, say aye. Aye. Great. Secondly, make sure that you fully utilize the time you've got. That is, if your group finishes sooner, you're here to produce results. Figure out a way to be creative and outrageous and add to the exercise rather than just sitting there waiting for the next instruction. How many people want to do that as well? Fantastic. Good. Then the exercise I want you to do next is actually very simple but also very precise. And what it is it's an acuity exercise. We're going to start out with just groups of 2 people. And actually we'll do it in groups of 3. And can I have 2 people on stage and we'll do a little demonstration of what the exercise is like. I need 2 volunteers. Don't all jump at once. There's one. One more volunteer? Yes, sir. Come on up. Give him a hand. Yes, indeed. Now give him an ovation. Yes, indeed. Now, all I want you to do is to start noticing things that you haven't noticed before. If you notice things with your patients that you weren't noticing before, and you can compliment them on them, or if you notice what kind of state they're in and you make some kind of comment, if you just give people a little extra attention, does it make a difference? And you better believe it does. So we want to begin to notice that about each other and want to notice that with our patients. So all we're going to do is a fun little drill or 2 on just noticing things to start with, real simple. Then we're going to increase it to noticing the specific states people are in without them telling us, okay? So the first exercise is real simple. All we're going to do is we're going to have 3 people, person A, person B, and person C. Person C's job is to monitor the exercise, okay? Person A's job, I'll be in this case, A, B, and C. Person A's job is going to be to first stand a certain way, and B's job is just notice how you're standing, everything about you. Then B closes B's eyes. Close your eyes, B. You're now B. And then I make a slight change. Now, in the beginning, I'll make an obvious change. And what happens is Bob opens his eyes, and he tells me what's different. I'm leaning how? Great, very true. Now, and she's here as quality control. Because I may make a change I don't realize. Like maybe I lean like this, and I also tilt back and don't notice it. And he goes, you're tilting back. And I go, no, I'm not. And she goes, yes, you are. Okay? Does that make sense? So it's real simple. So then we try something else. I do another still one. And I go like this. Okay? Close your eyes. Now, we already know how his strategy is for remembering how I am. Okay? He's got a strategy. Anybody notice what it is? He stores how I am in his own way. Body. He's doing it kinesthetically. So when he does that, now what I'm going to do is make a more subtle change. Okay, go ahead, Bob. What's changed?
Stop smiling.
Stop smiling, that's true. What else?
Lean your head back slightly.
Lean my head back slightly. That's absolutely accurate. Now, how does he know that? Because he's storing it in his body. He's like, got his head there. Oop, head's not far enough back, right? So he's found a way to do it. So if I wanted to challenge him, I'd say, Bob, I don't want you to use your body anymore in this next one. Now I want you to try a different way of doing it. So now what I want you to do is maybe notice what I'm doing just by remembering the picture in your head. Or maybe do it with sound. So let's do it this way. I do 2 simple ones like this. One's pretty obvious, one's more subtle. How many follow the first part of the exercise? Then let's do a movement. So now I'm going to do 2 different movements, Bob. One's A and one's B. I want you to notice the difference. And you're always watching quality control to make sure I'm accurate. So I go, this is A, Bob. Okay, this is B. Okay? Got the difference? Great. Which one's this? Right. Which one's this? Good. Which one's this? Good. So that was pretty obvious, right? Now we're going to make something more subtle. So I'm going to say, okay, Bob, this is A. This is B. Which one's this?
B.
Nope, it's A. What was different? And what I tell them was different is what I did with my eyes. I tightened up on this one, I relaxed on the other one. So I was very, very subtle. How many follow me on the exercise? Now, if you do this effectively, the first time they get it, the second time it's more tough and they probably won't get it. What we're trying to do is just get somebody to notice little things. How many follow me on this so far? Okay? Real simple exercise, real quick drill. So you're going to do two, one that's obvious, one that's not so obvious, and then two motions, one that's obvious, one that's not so obvious. Real simple. All I want to do is get your brain trained to look for things a little bit first. Then you'll go listen up, and we're going to try a different type of exercise. Okay? Go for it. How many of you began to notice a little bit more by practicing? Let me see your hands. Great. Shh. Have a seat right where you are, just where you are. Even if you kneel down on the floor, right where you are. And let me borrow two people up here. Can I have Bob and let's say Marie? Let me show you the next exercise. Marie, would you have a seat right here? Now, by the way, increasing what we notice, can that impact the quality of our practice, yes or no? Can it impact the quality of our life, yes or no? So what we want to do is just, right now, all we're doing is like becoming more sensitive to what we notice. Now we notice visually. Now we're going to notice auditorily. So Marie, I want you to close your eyes. And what's going to happen is Bob and I are going to mark out a sound. We're going to try and do a similar kind of sound. In the beginning, it'll be obvious, and later we'll try and get closer and closer until we hopefully can fool you. So this is Tony. And say this is Bob. Okay. Okay, otherwise, she's not going to know. Okay, her eyes are closed. Full clue. And he runs the office. Okay.
No, we run the office.
Oh, Marie says, no, we run the office. Okay. All right. Tony.
Bob.
Tony.
Bob.
Tony.
Bob.
Tony.
Bob.
Got it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Who's this?
Bob. Tony.
Now, when as soon as she says it, I did something wrong. The minute they say it, whether right or wrong, tell them instantly so their brain can link up whether it was right or wrong. So you were right in both cases. Close your eyes. Who's this?
Tony.
No. Now, what he did by doing that is he showed how she was doing it. She was doing it spatially. How many saw that? So your goal is not only to sit here and snap your fingers, but notice how they're figuring it out. Like, for example, when we were up here before, his strategy was to mirror me, right? So after a while, you take that away. So, okay, you can't do that anymore. Now, when I do this movement, like this is A, okay, and this is B, I want you to do it auditorily. They go, what do you mean? Like attach a sound to it. So this is A, so they go, this is B, the next time when they see it, they have to hear the sound. That's what we're doing is we're stretching the way we use our nervous system so we're more sensitive. And this one, it's real simple though. Okay, close your eyes again. And our goal, by the way, is to first be obvious. So, Tony.
Bob.
Tony.
Bob.
Okay, who's this?
Tony.
Right.
Bob.
Right.
Bob.
Good. She's gotten better. See, now she's listening with more acuity. How many notice this? Because we're not able to fool her in this way. So now she's making more distinctions about the sound. So now we'll try a different sound. We'll say, it's Tony.
Bob.
Tony.
Bob.
Tony.
Bob.
Okay, tell us who this is.
Bob.
Good.
Bob.
No. Okay. Okay, one more. Close your eyes. Okay. So now we'll make some other kinds of sound. Let's see what you pick a sound this time. I'll duplicate you.
Close your eyes. Bob.
Tony.
Bob.
Tony. Who's that? Good.
Bob. Tony.
Good.
Bob. Tony.
How did you know that? Could you feel my body coming by you?
No, I can see your shadow.
She can see my shadow. So she's using visuals. Okay, we'll try one more thing. Come back here. All right.
Close your eyes.
That was Bob. Okay. We got to tell her again, okay? All right, here we go. Tony.
Bob.
Tony.
Bob.
You got it? Tell us the first answer. You don't have a clue. Okay, then we've succeeded. And all we're trying to do is push it to where she really doesn't know. We start out easy, make it tougher. How many see the exercise? Great, go for it. Do it with twos. You're not doing it with your whole office. Okay, you're just doing it with with three people. Go for it. Now, what's the other sense, the major sense that's left? We've done it visually, auditorily. What's the third one? Smell? Well, yeah. Which, Tony? Bob. No. Bob. In this culture, there are 5 senses that we can utilize in our nervous system, but smell and taste are rarely ones you do with strangers. Okay? However, okay, touch is one we've left out, right? So close your eyes. And so we come along, and we say, Marie, it's Tony. It's Tony.
Tony.
That's right.
Bob.
Good.
Bob.
Good.
Bob.
Wow, good.
There's Bob.
Good.
It's Tony.
Good. How do you know that?
You're softer.
I'm softer. Okay, now I'm going to get harder. Close your eyes there, baby. Okay. It's Tony.
Bob.
Tony.
Bob.
Got the difference?
Uh-huh.
Great.
Tony. Bob. Tony.
How do you know that?
Your hand's cold.
My hand's cold. Very good. So it's temperature. Okay, here we go. Harder. Okay.
Take the ring off. Take the ring off.
Oh, ring. Now we'll do it a different way. Okay, close your eyes. So we'll do it this way. Wow, that was a state change anyway. That was Tony.
Bob.
I'm going to come on this side so she doesn't hear us and see my shadow too. Okay. Tony. No, it's on. Okay, are you ready?
Uh-huh.
You know who it is? Great.
Bob. Bob. Tony.
How you know on that one?
Your hands are softer.
My hands are softer. God, I can't believe it. Okay.
Glove's got talcum.
I guess that what it is. Okay. Close your eyes. I'll try a different one. Tell her who it is.
I just real soft.
He said it softly. It's Tony. Tony. Okay. All right. You know the difference? Go ahead, Bob. See, Bob, next time she's having problems in the office, just go and go, Bob. Probably work, huh? Okay, you ready, Marie?
Tony.
No! Yes! Okay, so you obviously didn't get that one down very well. Try it again. Ready? Tony. Tony. You have the difference? Great. Who is it? We're blowing all over you, baby. You don't even tell. What do you think? That was the wind that came by? All right, we'll try it again. Close your eyes. Who's that? Bob. No! Don't you know my breath by now? Give me one more chance. Here we go. It's Tony. It's Tony. You have the difference now? Okay. Who's that? Bob. Well, go back to your office and breathe with Bob, and we're all set. Give her a hand. Give them both a hand. Nice job. Go for it. Groups of 3. Go for it quickly. Now, you may be saying, well, what does this have to do with working with patients or communicating more effectively? I'll show you how we're going to use what we just did. All we were doing is building some building blocks to making you more sensitive so you can begin to have more sensory acuity in knowing what kind of state people are in so you can begin to make changes. For example, one of the most important things that we're going to talk about today, and that many of you are familiar with as well, is that if we're going to have an environment where people can really communicate, they got to feel really comfortable, they got to feel really safe. We're all familiar with that, right? But in addition to that, we have to have people be in an environment not just really feel safe, but where they're really committed to participating, where they're willing to be open and honest and supportive of each other so we can really get results done when things aren't working. And so in order to do that, you got to know whether the people, when they say they're safe, or whether they say that, yeah, I'm being open, I'm flexible, whether that's really true or not. Does that make sense? Because do people sometimes say, yeah, I'm safe, and it's not really 100% true, yes or no? Okay, so what we've got to do is develop more sensory acuity, and this will be our signal for that from now on. That is, if I see you and I see you interacting with somebody, and you ask them a question, and they give you what I'd call an incongruent answer. An incongruent answer is like somebody says, can I have it on Friday? And they go, yeah, sure. Are you going to get it on Friday, yes or no? No, how do you know that? Because their words and their face didn't match. That's called incongruency. Congruency is when your words, your voice, and your face match. Okay? So this will be our signal for sensory acuity. So I may come by and say, and that means pay attention. What's going on here you're not noticing? Okay? Now, how we're going to use this is an exercise using all 3 skills. We've just been using those as building blocks. So I need a couple examples up here. 2 people up here. 2 volunteers. There's one. Can I have another person? There's 2. Give me a hand. Yes, indeed. Oh, a real hand. Here we go. And why don't we have you have a seat? And Christy. What we're going to do is we're going to have her go into 5 different emotional states. And we're going to write those states on the board. And I'd like you to write them on the board if you would, Christy. Okay? And what we're going to do is, in writing these 5 on the board, she's going to demonstrate the states. In fact, Christy, who would like to do the sensory acuity part? That is, remember what kind of state she's in. Who wants to do that part? I'm looking for a volunteer. Okay. In other words, we're going to have her describe these states, and then later on she's going to go into one. You're going to have to say which state she's in. Who wants to volunteer to do that? Dr. Tony, thank you for volunteering. Okay. Very good. So, Dr. Tony, you can sit right there and do it. In fact, all of you are going to do this as well, but I'm going to hold you as the one responsible, Dr. Tony. So it's going to be a 3-person exercise. One person's going to write down the answers. One person's going to be in state. The other person here is going to be the person who, in the process, is really going to decide what state they're in. When she's done writing down the answers, in fact, let's do this. Let's pull you back a little bit. You can stand up for a second if you would. Okay, thank you very much. Great. Let's do it this way. What we'll do in the very beginning is she normally, if it's a 3-person exercise, follow me, please. 3-person exercise. Person A is going to go into 5 different states, one at a time as we ask her. Person B will be the person who's watching, trying to what we call calibrate. What does she do differently, for example, when she's like in a happy state versus in a down state? Let's say those are the 2 states she has. Person C is going to write them down also, like state number 1 is, state number 2 is, state number 3 is. And they're going to watch also. So normally she would be in front, not back there. She's only back there because the board's back there. Okay? So let's do, you tell us any state that you go into on a regular basis, positive or negative, but one that you go into. Give us an example of the state you want to go into. Demonstration. What's the emotion? Happy. So number 1 is going to be happy. Because in the future, what's going to happen is this other person's going to give her signal on which state to go into. And then we got to make sure to find out whether we get the right state or not. So show us what happiness is like. Your whole body being happy, the way you are when you're happy, the way you're breathing when you're happy. And while she's doing that, you're right now calibrating, paying attention to what she's like when she's happy. Stay in that state. Don't pay attention to me, just being in a happy state. Okay? Okay. Feeling really happy. Just stay in that state, feeling happy. How many feel like you got this one down? Now what you want to do is notice, what can you notice? First thing I would notice is a person's posture, their breathing. What else would you notice, obviously? Their facial expressions, tension or relaxation. So get a real good idea what happy looks like. One more time. I know you're tired of being happy, but what the hell? Okay, great. That's number one. Put a number one next to that. Okay, great. Now out of that state, get out of the chair, shake your body out. Why do we do this? Have her get out of the chair and shake her body out. Yeah, because we want to make sure she's completely out of that state. We don't want her staying happy and stuff. Be careful, okay? Sit back down and tell us what's state number 2 going to be. It can be a positive or a negative. We want some variety. Pout. A state she knows well. Okay, good. Okay. Pouting. Show us what pouting looks like. Stay in that state. Pouting. Okay. She knocked herself out of state on that one. Okay, how many got pouting down? Okay, out of the state. Shake your body out. Come on, real fast. Shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it. Everybody else will be clapping and moving. Okay, grab a seat. What's the third one going to do? Confused. Great. Now notice, is there some similarity between pout and confused? This is where you need more what? Sensory acuity. Are there differences though, yes or no? Okay, great. So show us confused. Continue confused. And if I were you, I'd write down notes while they were here so you'd remember. All right? Write down, oh, she's confused, she does this, so you got a little trigger remembering. Okay, out of that state. Go back and show us pouting so we can see the difference. Pouting. Okay, out of that state. Shake your body out. Show us happiness. Okay, great. Shake out of that state. What's the fourth state going to be? You're asking me? You only have 3 states you live in. You're happy, pouting, or confused. One of those 3. No, use your emotions, not theirs. Demanding. Another state she's familiar with. Okay. Demanding. Show us demanding. Okay, but I want to see it fully associated, not where you're laughing. I want to use her. By the way, if she does it halfway, are we going to get it right in the future? Yes or no? Now, so make sure she really fully, what's the word? Associates. She's really in that state. So show us what demanding really looks like. Okay. Stay in that state. Show us some more. Again. How many notice what's going on in her face that's different besides her body? Anybody notice the breathing changes? There are also in some of these exercises, for example, pout, there's a difference in the size of the lip. True? Okay, so you notice some of the lips, the face, the breathing, the gestures, all those things together. Okay, out of that state, shake your body out. And last state, what's it going to be? Maybe I ought to do ecstasy. Okay, great. I'm glad you looked at me when you said that. Made me happy. Your cameraman's going to kill me, but other than that, we're in good shape. Ecstasy. You nod when you're totally there. No, you got ecstasy. You got yourself into this. Now go for it. So that's how you breathe when you're in ecstasy. Okay. Okay, that's it. You're going in and out of it. Show us ecstasy without going out of it. Stay in there. Okay, one more time. You're only in it for a moment or two. How many see the moment she's in it, you see what it is? Go into it, fully associate. Okay, how many got it pretty strong on that one? Great. Okay, out of the chair. Shake your body out completely. Okay? Now, sit back down. Now, I'm going to tell her a number to go into. So a microphone person needs to cut me off here for a second. I'll tell her a number. Normally what will happen is the person who's observing, person B, person C will be behind them, and they'll point to the chart. The little piece of paper that says number 1, 2, whatever, because they won't remember what they are. So is it happy or whatever the case may be. So she won't remember the number, so I'll tell her. Please cut me off, and all of you will do this. Tony, you're the one responsible. What state is that, Tony? Confused. Okay. Somebody else, what is it? It's pounds. I'm glad I picked you, Tony. Everybody else in the office got it but you. 300 people, you were the one to know. No problem, okay. Okay, show him confused so he sees the difference. Confused. Go ahead and show him confused. Okay, show him pout. Okay, great. Out of those states, shake your body out. Okay, Mike. What is she, Tony? Confused. How many think she's confused? You got it. Yeah, give yourselves a hand. Nice job. Oh, come on, a real hand. There you go. Yes. Now. That one's a little obvious, isn't it? She actually put happy. When I said demanding, she got happy about it. Oh, yeah. Okay. So this one's pretty obvious. So when you do it in the future, we're going to have you not do it with your hand, just with your face. Let's try another one. What was that one, Tony? Hey, how many think it's ecstasy? Very good. Ecstasy going there. Happy. How many of you gotten all of them right? Great. So now what I do is I add one more. Take a look at these words and tell me a state that's like real close. Give me one that's real close to happy. Real close. No, not your word, her words. Content. Okay? And tell me a word that's real close to, let's say, confused or about, pout, whichever one you prefer. One that's real close, but not the same. Disillusioned, if that's next to confused or pout. Could be both. It's kind of in between the two. Okay, good. Disillusioned. Great. Show us content. Now you have to make more refined distinctions. Show us happy. Show us content. Okay? Show us ecstasy. Okay. All right, how many see the differences? Okay, great. Show us disillusioned. Okay, out of that state. Show us confused. Out of that state, show us pout. Okay, out of that state. How many see the differences? Okay? All right. So I'm going to take from any of now 7 states. Okay, it could be any of the 7 states. Which one? How many say it's happy? You got it. Out of that state? Did you hear me? No. Yeah. You forgot what it is? How many say disillusioned? Absolutely on the track. Give yourselves a hand. Nice job. Give her a hand as well. Thank you very much. Whoa, yes. So what I want you to do is get with a group of 3 and do this process. I want you to be able so good that no matter what they say, you know the exact state they're in, not what you think they're in. Go for it. We said that the bottom line is if we want to have quality results, we got to create a quality environment where there's quality what? Communication. That in order to do that, one of the things that keeps us from having it is having stress in the environment. And when we get stressed, we forget why we're communicating. Why are we communicating? In order to what? Feel good. And if we want to feel good long term, we got to make sure the other person what? Feels good. And if we're in an office, what we got to do is produce some what? Results. So that's the bottom line of what we got to do. So what keeps that from happening is we're stressed, we forget why, or we focus on short-term personal needs instead of focusing on the long-term personal needs and the team's needs. We're going to look at our own needs and everybody else's long-term. Now, in order to do this, then what we've got to do is we're going to go through 5 elements of mastering communication. And I'd like you to jot these down. So if you've got a notebook next to you, make sure you jot those down if you would. They are really the 5 elements of reality bridging. The reality bridge technology. It'll give you the overview of everything you need to do to master communication and really produce the kind of results that you want in your life. Now, and at the top of your notes under reality bridging, write down one key phrase you'll want to remember. We've talked about it before, but make sure you remind yourself. And that is, write down, the quality of my life is the quality of my communication. The quality of my life is the quality of my communication. And I want this to be the frame that you operate from now on. Quality of my life is the quality of my communication. Number 1, who influences the quality of your life first? By the way, you communicate with whom? Yourself. So for example, if you find yourself overeating or drinking or smoking or doing something you know isn't really great, and you're still not successful in changing it, what you're really saying is, I have not learned to communicate to myself in a way to really change my behavior. How many follow me on this? Okay, we've got to change the way we're communicating to ourselves in order to change the way we feel. If you're not as happy as you want to be, it is not to do with the events. It has to do with how you're communicating to yourself. Okay? How many have seen people who have every reason to be happy who are unhappy because of the way they communicate with themselves? How many have been that person at one time in your life? Okay? So changing, we've all been sold a bill of goods that says someday, somehow, someone, something, some amount of money, some person, and then I'll be happy. And it's a bill of goods. It's not true. And when people get all those things and they're happy from anywhere from 5 seconds to 15 years, and all of a sudden they're back to the same place again. Things won't make you happy. You make yourself happy by what you choose to focus on and how you communicate to yourself. The questions you ask yourself. So we've got to master communication within ourselves. If we want to succeed in the outside world, if we want to have an impact, if we want to be able to help people, if we want to be able to change people, then we've got to be able to learn how to persuade, how to influence, how to communicate externally. If we want to be able to have somebody fall in love with us, we want to have a great relationship. If we want to make money, we've got to be good external communicators. So the quality of our life is the quality of our communication. So if we want to master communication, there are really 5 steps to having quality communication, therefore a quality life. And the 5 steps start with step number 1. And step number 1 is decide to become a master communicator. You've got to make a decision to become a master communicator. To master communication, to become a master of meaning is another way of looking at it. You got to decide. Now remember, we talked before, the word decide comes from a Latin root, like incision, decision. What does that mean? To cut off from. When you make a decision, you cut off any other possibility. So you got to say, I am going to be a master communicator because it's so important. I'm not going to dabble in communications. Communication affects everything. My kids, my life, my future, my present, my income, my relationships, my health. It affects all that stuff. So this is an area in life I got to master. Most people in life don't succeed, again, because they major in minor things. I want to master this because mastering communication is one of the major lessons of life. So I've got to do that. How am I going to do it? Well, one thing I'm going to do is I'm really going to learn how to control the meaning I link to things. Because if I'm going to change my life, I've got to be able to control the meaning. These kids in Marva Collins' class are master communicators. With whom do you think first? Number 1, whom? Themselves. So they go to an environment and somebody calls them a unique word because of the color of their skin, and they really don't get upset or hurt or angry. They think, God, isn't that person ignorant? Isn't that amazing for them to do that? They keep thinking about, I wonder what made somebody like that grow up and be that ignorant. They're thinking this at 7 years old. See, that's different. They're communicating themselves. They've made the meaning as, somebody said that doesn't mean I'm less. Somebody saying that means they're confused or ignorant. God, I wonder what makes them that way. Is that different than most people, yes or no? Absolutely. Would that change the quality of their lives, yes or no? You better believe it. You've got to master meaning. And you know what the problem is? Most of us, especially when we get stressed, we go to the worst possible meaning. Like somebody doesn't call you, and what do you immediately jump to? Oh, they don't care. or they don't respect me, or something's wrong here. People jump to meanings that aren't true, and they get upset about them. What we want to do is master the meanings and always find a meaning. Here's the key. We want to find a meaning in any experience of our life that empowers us. It doesn't matter what the environment is. That is, I don't care what happens to you. Your goal in life, if you're a master communicator, is to master your communication with yourself so that if all heck breaks loose, somewhere out of that you find a meaning that empowers you. Let's say, for example, somebody really does something that in the short term hurts your feelings. They do something really harsh with you. How could you take somebody being harsh with you, like raising their voice and getting intense with you, and change the meaning? For you to feel upset, the meaning has to be something where you feel lost, like they don't care about you as much, or they're being disrespectful, and that loss turns into hurt and then maybe even anger. What would be a better meaning than they're upset with me or they're treating me harshly? What might be a better thing to think about in that frame? What would you think? That's right, they're crying for help. Right now, for them to be angry and tense, it's not about me. But the meaning of this is this person really is stressed. They really need some help. And I don't appreciate the way they did it with me, but I know they care about me, so let me come back here and try and change their state. Or let me break their pattern, which is what we're going to do, is show you some ways to break pattern right before we go to lunch here. Okay? How many follow me on this? Okay? So let's say you set a goal to achieve something. You've got your heart and soul set on it, and then for some reason something intercedes. You know, something occurs. A hurricane comes to your little town, and it affects the patient flow that week. Okay? If something like that happens, are you going to be devastated? Well, you could be. If you want to call it the word devastated, instead of using transformational vocabulary, if you remember from the first session, instead of saying, well, I'm a little disappointed, right? And what does it mean? Well, it may mean, oh my gosh, I lost my business, lost the income, or we didn't reach these people. Or it could mean, hey, this is a chance for us to really look at what's most important in our lives. Let's focus on what's most important here. Let's use this as a time to get our act together so when our patients are back and things settle down, we can really take good care of them. There are so many different little changes in meaning that change the quality of human beings' lives. And our goal then is to take whatever life gives us and find and empower a meaning. That's when you're a master communicator. And by the way, a lot of times you're not sure what things mean. How many have been in that place? You're not really sure. So when you're not sure, guess what you should do? Decide on the one that's most empowering and make it real. See, we can make up whatever is true to us, and most of us do. Most of us pick the worst situation. We want to learn to pick the best meaning for ourselves. So make sure you decide to master meaning. And number two, remind yourself in your offices and in your life. If you're a master communicator, then you've got to make sure that you commit to the vitality track and not the cancer track. Do you remember what the difference was between those two? I'll give you a little reminder here. The cancer track is what most people do who destroy their relationships, their businesses, and their personal life. And what it is, when we have an expectation and it doesn't get met, what kind of state do we usually go into? Depressed, what else? Frustrated, angry, disappointed, disillusioned, what else? Hurt, okay? And we go into the basically emotional states that we've got patterns of going into. Most people have a disillusioned state or hurt or angry. What's the first thing most people do? As soon as they got an upset, they immediately look for somebody to lay blame on. True or false? True. And does that usually make it better, yes or no? Does that build a better team? Does that create a quality environment with quality communication and quality results, yes or no? No way. And by the way, people don't just blame, like, let's say, the doctor or their staff members. Most people do blame others, but some people just blame themselves. Does blaming yourself motivate you to really become better? Rarely. And some people don't blame themselves, they blame circumstances. Well, it's not my fault, it's because this and this and that. You know, the truth of the matter is we can always find a reason why something isn't working. But the bottom line is we have to be responsible for the results. Now, what do some people do? They go, okay, well, now that I'm done laying blame, that's not enough. I'm angry, and I need to make sure I feel justified, so they go to step two. They justify and complain to other people. Go out there and subgroup. We talked about this before. Now, how many have seen this happen in your office amongst anybody in the last 60 days? Let's see some honest hands. How does it feel, again, when somebody, let's say, talks behind your back? When somebody subgroups, and two people get together and say, oh, so-and-so's there. How does that feel to you? Yeah. If you keep doing that, what's going to be the ultimate impact on your relationships? It's going to destroy them. It's going to screw them up royally. You've got to stay out of that place and promise yourself and commit not to subgroup. That if you've got an upset, who should you handle that upset with? That person directly. Third thing people do is after they get enough people, and they all say, yeah, I'm upset too. By the way, what are your chances of finding somebody else who's upset? Somebody else whose expectations have not been met. What's the chances of finding somebody like that? About 100%, right? It's called life. Then what happens? You get these people together and you sit down and resent and brew. right? And get worse and worse and more angry until finally what somebody does is usually confront somebody. And they say, look, I was honest, and they didn't respond. Confronting is not the style we want to use. And lastly, what most people do is after they confront is they give up and seek revenge. We don't want to do that. We want instead, as master communicators, to go for the alternative we talked about last time, which is the vitality track, which is where you get excited and appreciate the feelings that you're having. Where immediately you say, okay, I got these feelings, they're intense, I feel angry or upset. That's exciting. I need to appreciate the fact that my brain is telling me that I need to change something. Because we all found out last time, negative emotions are a signal. They're a call to what? Do you remember? Action. If you got negative emotions, something's hurting. What it's saying to you is you need to change either the way you're looking at this, your perception, or you got to change your actions. The way you're doing it, the way you're communicating, the way you're making requests. So if you're feeling negative feelings, you don't want to feel bad about it. You want to say, okay, this is great. This is my brain trying to give me a note. I need to get curious about what is it that I really need right now. And I need to think of what else could this situation mean. I'm really upset about it, but what else could it mean? Maybe the doctor raising his voice to me, or her voice to me, isn't they don't care about me. Maybe they're stressed. Maybe I ought to see if I can support that person. Maybe I need to soften the way I'm feeling about this and not say I'm devastated, but say, you know, I'm a little frustrated with the way they're treating me. Maybe I need to go and communicate as soon as possible to that person that, you know, I know they have good intent, and I'd really appreciate it if they changed their style of communicating with me because it just doesn't feel good and I want to support them. And if I do that enough and I focus on meeting this person's needs, I'm going to probably meet my needs. So as a master communicator, what we're doing is controlling meaning, and we're making sure that when we have negative emotions, we don't see them as a negative, we see them as a call to action, a chance to change. So all this is part of deciding to be a quality communicator. In our last session, we did two other things. Step 3, and we did this also this time. This is all part of Roman numeral number 1. There are 5 Roman numeral steps, and these are sub-steps. Third thing you got to do if you've decided to be a master communicator is break your old stressful communication patterns down. Break up your old stressful communication patterns and adopt patterns of communication excellence. So you got to break up your old patterns, your stressful patterns of communicating, and you've got to adopt patterns of communication excellence. And we've done a little bit more of this morning, haven't we? Having you notice the ways you communicate when you're stressful, because the more aware you are, the less likely you're going to do it. Because pretty soon you start to laugh at yourself. Plus, by having everybody else in the office know about it, they get to give you some feedback. Plus, now by becoming more acutely sensitive to what's going on with somebody and noticing what's going on, we got a chance to be able to intercede a lot more quickly. We're going to be more sensitive to what's happening. And the fourth thing we did last time was we adopted some new beliefs that help you to be a better communicator. And the number one we've talked about several times this morning is no matter what somebody does, it's either a call for help or a cry for help or what kind of response? A loving response. So if somebody seems to be really stressed out with you and they're really angry at you, they're not angry with you, they're upset with all kinds of stuff in their life and they think it's you. What your job to do is just see that they just need help and support. And if instead of coming back to them with anger, you come back to them and say, listen, I'm really sorry for the impact. That's certainly not my intent. You know, there's no excuse for this and I want to support you. What can I do to make it work? That'll burn through almost any upset you can imagine if you do it sincerely. And all of a sudden you'll get to that loving place with that person and they'll want to support you as well. So step number one, again, is decide to be a master communicator. These are the 4 sub-steps. Here's step number 2. If you want to be a master communicator and you've really decided to do that, you've mastered some of the communication within yourself, you've got to reach out and master communication with other people. And the way you do that, step number 2, is build the unbreakable bond. We call it the reality bridge. Build the unbreakable bond. You've got to build that bond and connect with people, specifically with the people that you want quality communication with in your life. Okay? Who are the people you want to have quality communication with? You've got to go build that bond. And we did this quite a bit last time. When we come back from lunch, we're going to do a little exercise and it'll make it even stronger for you guys. But how do you do that? When we say build the bond, again, remember this. How many have somebody that you have an unbreakable bond with that even if all heck broke loose in your relationship and things weren't working out or you got mad at each other, you'd always come back. You never would wonder whether the relationship was going to last. You always trust them. You'd always come back and heal the relationship. You would never, ever let it go. How many have got somebody like that in your life? Okay. Again, what makes that relationship last? How come you know that relationship is always going to last? How come even if you get upset with each other, you come back and still like each other and care about each other and love each other? The answer is a long time ago, you made a decision about who this person really is. And that's how you build a bond. One day you finally said, I know who Angie is. You know, I know Angie is a good person. She cares about me. I care about her. You know, our actions may get messed up back and forth, but I know she cares about me. I know I care about her. That's never going to change. So step 1 is you decide who this person is. Step 2, you decide that the reality of your relationship is one of caring, one of love. The reality is this person's never trying to hurt you. If you feel hurt by their behavior, it's not what they're trying to do. It's not their intent. They care about you. And vice versa. You care about them, and you would never do anything to purposely hurt them. You've got to make a decision. You'll never hurt this person purposely, and if something doesn't work out, you'll do your best to mend it. But this is a relationship you're committed to make working. Even if you guys don't work together. Let's say you go off to another job someday. You know if you ever saw this person again, that bridge would still be there. That trust, that connection. How many follow me on this process? If you don't do this, will any of the other communication strategies work? Yes or no? Yes, they will work for a short time. But when you get stressed, they won't work. You'll throw them out the window, won't you? If you forget all the other strategies we teach you, but all you do is really have a bond of totally loving somebody, you can forget the rest of these strategies and still be successful. All the strategies do is speed up the process, make it more elegant and quick and more enjoyable. But if you have a bond of absolute love and trust, where you know you can count on that person, you'll always come back to that. You got to build that bond with people. Now, some of you say, let's say some of the doctors in here might say, well, yeah, but this person's my accounts receivable. I don't know if I want to be bonded to this person. You know, I mean, what if they don't do the job? I wouldn't hire somebody that I wasn't looking to have a long-term relationship with. You know, last time we were here, what was it, Doctor, I've forgotten his last name. The gentleman who's 78 years old. What's his first name? Dr. Morris, I call him, that's right. There's Dorothy, Dr. Morris, there she is. Good old Dorothy here, right? Dorothy, how many years again have you been with him? 40 years. You think they got a bond? Do you think he's willing to turn his back and trust her to run things, make things work? Yes or no? Yeah, you better believe it. He made one good decision with her, and the big decision he made was a long time ago. He decided who that woman was, and she decided who he was. And two more. How many years there? 36 years as of yesterday. Give him a hand. Nice job. Unbelievable. Do you think that would happen if the first time things got screwed up or he got really upset, he began to question whether or not these girls, this lady here or this woman here was really there to support him, or if they were just trying to rip him off? Do you think they'd still be in a relationship? Yes or no? No way. They built a bond that's lasted a lifetime, and what they have together is all the growth and joy and impact they've had on the patients and the building of the practice together. The best way to create a bond with people, once you decide that's who they are, is to immediately go out and do something for no reason for them. Something special, something unique. It doesn't have to be a purchase, it's just a thought of caring. People will never forget that, especially when it's not expected, especially when there's no reason except you care. That's stuff people remember for a lifetime. I've got one friend years ago who was in a situation where I was in a situation where I had no future. I was broke, I didn't know what I was going to do. I was probably at the lowest level I could remember being. And he pulled me aside and gave me this pep talk and handed me $20 when we were both broke. And it meant everything in the world to me. That he cared enough. He took what little he had and gave it to me. It wasn't the money, it was the idea that he did that. He didn't have to do that. We've been friends for a lifetime. And the reciprocation that's come from that on my side of trying to support him over the years has been many-fold. You know, there was a time when he didn't have $50,000 and I was able to loan it to him. I didn't have to. I tried to. He wouldn't take it. I loaned him about a fourth of that, actually, about 12. All because of that one relationship we had years ago, because I want to do anything I could to support him, because he supported me. How many got an experience like that in your own personal life you can think of? Okay, so we all have those. We need to utilize that in the bonding process and not just think of bonding as, well, okay, I trust them and they trust me, okay, it's a safe place. We need to go deeper than that. We've got to add a level of caring, because that's what creates the quality that when people walk into the practice, they will feel it. Because they'll see the way you guys treat each other and they'll feel the same feelings coming to them. Okay? So step number 2 here is build the unbreakable bond. Decide who the person is. Decide they're a good person. You care about them. They care about you. Third, decide that even when you're under stress, you'll not question who this person is or what they're about. Even when you're stressed, you're not going to say, oh, what a horrible person, or how could they do this to me, or they're such a terrible person. You're not going to question that. You know they're a good person. It's probably just a misunderstanding. And fourthly, anytime there's an upset in the future, come back to that bridge. Meaning, come back to the fact that even if you don't know why they did something, you don't understand their behavior, come back to, hey, we've got this connection. We've got this bridge between us that's always there. That's the reality of our relationship. I may get angry in the moment. I may get upset in the moment. They may get upset in the moment. But the bridge is here between us always. We're always connected. I'm always going to cross that bridge first and connect. So key number 1 is decide to be a master communicator. Key number 2 is you got to go build the bridge. And these are the 4 steps to building the bridge. How many of you, by the way, honestly in your gut, and don't raise your hand just to raise your hand, feel like you really have that bridge with every single person in your office? Not most, Every single person in your office. And don't raise your hand unless it's absolutely true. Raise your hand. Okay? How many would agree if you have that bond with everybody in the office, not only would you enjoy yourself more, but the practice would become more profitable as well? How many agree with that? Okay? How many don't agree that if we all totally bonded, we all cared about each other and support each other to the utmost level, the practice would not benefit? Okay, good. Third step, third master step to being a master communicator is you need to make sure you put yourself in a position, I'll give you these things later on, where you commit never to question the person's ultimate intent. Third major step to reality bridging, being a master communicator. Once you decide to master communication within yourself, you created the bond. Step 3 is you've got to commit to never question the ultimate intent of this person. What is the difference between ultimate intent and that's just intent? Well, the ultimate intent of this person is to support you. In the moment, they may get a little stressed out and do something that doesn't support you, but their ultimate intent is really that they care about you. How many follow me on this one? Okay? So yes, in the moment, they may do something a little selfish. How many of you in this room have ever done something a little selfish? Okay? But ultimately, are you a selfish person? Probably not. Okay? So the bottom line is you got to know that although in the moment this may not feel good to you, they really do care about you, and you're not going to question that. So you're going to know that all the responses are either loving responses or cries for help. You're not going to answer cries for help with what? Cries for help. And thirdly, questioning the intent of someone's behavior. Like if I question, did you do that to hurt me, or did you do that to take advantage of me? You did that just to try and control me. See, I heard somebody saying that earlier when they were in their group. They said, well, if somebody's trying to control me, I just try to get back. People aren't trying to control you. They're trying to control their own life. You just happen to be nearby. Right? So you think they're trying to control you. They don't care about that. They're just trying to get control of their own life. And if you're nearby, you may feel like they're trying to control you. They're just trying to feel good. And they think if they get control, they'll feel good. They're probably wrong. Because just when you think you got control and you work so hard at it, you find out you're still not happy. So the bottom line is not about you. So you don't want to question their intent ever, or you're going to begin to destroy and erode the relationship. So that's key number 3. Commit to never question the ultimate intent. Here's key number 4. Key number 4 is master the strategies of, and make sure you remember and underline these 3 words, master the strategies of clarifying, requesting, and responding. Master the strategies, the communication strategies of being certain to clarify, make requests, and respond in a quality way. We started last time by teaching you reality bridging. Do you remember that? How many of you used reality bridging since that time? Raise your hand if you've used it. How many found that it really worked for you when you did it on yourself and clarified things? Great. We want to reinforce that process. It worked powerfully when we did it before. We want to make sure you get in the habit of using it consistently. We also taught you a way of clarifying things in talking with other people. Once you knew what you needed, you were able to communicate to somebody by saying, I need your help, and getting to that person that process. And we taught you some ways on how to respond back to people in a quality way. We're going to teach them some ways to refine that so a person really not only feels heard, but a new result is produced in the office, a new result is produced for that person, and they feel good about it. Okay? And we're going to teach you a series of ways to make that happen. The purpose of mastering the strategies of clarifying, requesting, and responding is to create the quality of life that you're committed to. And again, we have 3 tools. The reality check. The second thing we're going to teach you, we kind of alluded to before, we call the quality request format, and then we have a quality response format. The 5th step is to know how to create corrections in yourself and other people. To know how to make corrections in yourself and other people when continuous attempts at change fail. So fifth major step to being a master communicator is you've got to know how to create corrections in yourself and in other people when you've made continuous approaches at change and it just hasn't worked. Okay? You make continuous attempts to change and it doesn't work, you got to make what we call a correction. And this format I think you're going to find quite powerful. By the way, how many have experienced this in your office? That is, you know somebody has good intent, but over and over again you talk about something, you talk about it, it doesn't change. How many have experienced this in the office? And how many have used all the other tools you've been learned and been taught, and you've been really nice and wonderful and warm, you've been loving, and it still hasn't changed? How many have done that and it still hasn't changed? How many have done this with yourself? Or you've worked on getting it changed and try to get yourself to change and try and it just doesn't last? How many have had that happen? What you need is a correction. And by the way, it's very positive, it's not negative. And if you're the manager of the office, or if doctor, you're running your own office, this correction, the first person you're going to make it on is yourself. the things aren't going well in the office, the person who's the leader has got to correct himself first. Not the office, not the staff, not the individual. I'm going to show you how to do that. And then make a correction that the other people participate in that really works. I'm going to show you the process of doing it. So the 5 overview steps are: you got to decide to be a master communicator and master the communication you have within yourself. You got to make sure that you build the bridge, build that unbreakable bond with each other. You got to get to the point where you will not question each other's intent anymore. You got to master strategies for clarifying things, because along the way, are there going to be things that you're going to be confused by or a little bit frustrated with? You're going to need to clarify, yes or no? You better believe it. You also have to have ways, once you try to clarify things, to be able to make a request so you can change things. And when people make requests of you, you've got to have a quality way of not only making requests, but a quality way of responding to people. So that's what these are about. And lastly, if all else has failed and you still haven't made a change, you've got to know how to make corrections that absolutely produce results. You do all 5 of those, and you really have mastered communication. What stops most people from communicating, we talked about this morning, is stress and going into stress patterns. How many of you have ever had somebody in your office who is in a state which I would call a stuck state, where it's like nothing you're going to say or do is going to change them? How many of you have ever had that experience with somebody in your office? I know you've never been there, but you've seen other people there. We're going to do a fun little exercise that's a little bit outrageous. And what it is we need, when somebody's in a stuck state, we need to break their what? Break their pattern. Now, how do people get into an emotional pattern? Do you remember? 2 ways that we can get ourselves in an emotional state. One way is by the way we use our what? Our what? Our physiology. So any change in physiology changes the way we feel. So right now, put a big, stupid, silly grin on your face. And how many feel differently when you do that than a moment ago? Of course, if you change the way you move, you immediately change the way you feel. The other thing we've taught you that changes the way you feel is what you focus on, or what you represent inside your head, correct? So if right now you wanted to feel depressed, how many could pull it off? Okay, no problem. What would you have to do? Just focus on some horrible thing and put yourself in a depressed physiology and you could get there. If you want to be in ecstasy, how many could do that also? Great, try it. Sit right now the way you'd be sitting if you were in ecstasy. Come on. Breathe right now the way you'd be breathing if you were in ecstasy. Make the sounds right now you'd be making if you were in ecstasy. How many feel better in this moment than a few moments ago? So the 2 ways that people get in states is by what they picture and focus on, say to themselves, and then how they use their body is the most powerful way of all. So if someone's in a stuck state, somebody's in an angry state, somebody's in a state where you're not going to get through to them, in order to stay in this state, they have to stay in this physiology. Any change in what they focus on and think about, or any change in their physiology is going to change how they feel. So we're going to do a fun, outrageous exercise. How many of you want to be outrageous? Say aye. Aye. Great. What we're going to do is, we're going to have a 3-person exercise where person A is going to go into a stuck state, where they're going to get in a state where nobody's going to get through to them. And I want you to go in such a stuck state that you don't even give any feedback. Have you ever had somebody who just like shuts down, they won't even fight back, they won't even say anything? How many have dealt with this? How many agree somebody who won't give you any feedback and just stays stuck is probably the toughest person to deal with of all? If somebody's fighting, at least there's a chance for a breakthrough. If they just sit there, there's not even a chance of that. So I want you to be able to get through to anybody, including somebody who's totally stuck. So person A, your goal is to use your ability to focus to not give any feedback at all. You're going to stay in that state, you're not going to give anything back at all. Person B, your job is to break their state as many different ways as you can. Because right now, you know what happens? You only have a few ways to break people's states. But most people have lots of ways to stay stuck. Does that make sense? So, for example, when people go to see a therapist, the biggest problem for most therapists is the therapist has these rules, and they only have these certain ways to change people. They've got limits. I had a lady who came to my last date with Destiny, and she had 49 personalities. Her doctor, certified. Her doctor called me and told me what was going on, and I said, well, gosh, she's a whole seminar by herself. So bottom line is, worked with her. I thought she was going to be the problem. I'm working on this woman, this other woman in this room just absolutely goes nuts. You know, she starts yelling at me while I'm working with this other woman, and she talks about how, you know, I'm part of the Nazi party and we're cutting off people's heads, and right now that we're pouring stuff in through the air conditioners, you know, that right now that's making us all go crazy. And this woman just totally loses it. Nobody knew that she was crazy, right? I mean, completely lost it. And she was stuck in that state. I mean, hatred, no matter what I did. I tried to be real relaxed. I tried to be funny. I tried to be intense. Nothing seemed to work. I went on for 30 minutes, and I knew my outcome was to change her what? State, to break her what? Pattern. So what I do, step 2, I took what? Action. And I used my sensory what? To know it was working. It wasn't hard to see it wasn't working. She kept saying, and you're a Nazi, and you know, we need to kill you because you're going to kill all of us. And she just was absolutely lost. And people in the room were like, couldn't even believe this thing, right? And I kept changing and changing and changing. Finally, after about 20 minutes of this, and anything I said, anything I did, she incorporated. She goes, you said that because you're a Nazi, or you did that because you smell it now. And she went on and on and on. So finally, the way I broke her pattern was I tried everything I could. I got intense with her. I was nice to her. I was loving to her. I said, don't you understand? All this stuff. Finally, I said, okay. And I turned it around like I was going to leave. And all of a sudden, I literally jumped over two people in the back and grabbed this woman and started screaming and shaking her. Scared the hell out of everybody in the room because they thought I totally lost it. I was going to kill this woman because she was so intense, right? Scared the hell out of this woman, too, and broke her what? Pattern. She was like all freaking out and stuff. And then she went back into it. And then I said, come here on stage. Come here. Come here now! Just like freaking out. I grabbed her, right? And I brought her on stage and everything else, you know, and she had been physically abused at one time, I found out. It's a great strategy to use. But when I got her up on the stage and everything else, and I acted like I was going to hurt her, and she was like freaking out, ready to hurt me back, and then I grabbed her and I started dancing with her. And I took her hand and started dancing with her, and the whole room's looking around, and she went in a little trance. She put her head down on my little chest, and looked up and smiled, and Jerry turned on some music, and we did this here, and we danced for 15 minutes. Audience loved it. And at the end, I kissed her hand, and I said, thanks. She said, you're not a Nazi. And she sat down. See, there's always a way to get through to people, but you've got to be willing to do almost anything in some cases. Now, most of you are not going to be dealing with 49 personality unique people while you're trying to work on some other change in them, unless you're in the psychiatric office, which are some of you in that profession. But for the most of you, you're not going to have to deal with that. My point, though, is you've got to deal with each other, and some of you are psychiatric cases as it is, so it's no problem. Or at moments you appear to be, at moments. How many feel like at moments people in your office feel like they're psychiatric cases? So what we want to do is get through. The best way to break through, listen carefully, the best way to break through is to do something people don't expect. Does that make sense? If you try and break somebody's pattern by doing what they expect, it's not going to happen. So if you're all depressed and I come to you and say, gosh, Tony, I'm really sorry you feel so depressed, you know, and that's what everybody else does. Is that going to change him, yes or no? No, I got to do something he doesn't expect. I got to do something outrageous. You know, he says he's depressed and I spill my drink on him. That'll get his attention, right? And you go, well, he may even make him a little mad. It'll change his state, though. Anything you can do that's outrageous will do it. So being gross, being outrageous, being funny, being weird, all those things changes people's states, and most people aren't willing to do that. But with each other, it'd be useful to do that. Some of you do these things anyway without even being educated to do it. So we're going to do a quick exercise. So I need somebody up here who's pretty good at getting stuck. Let me have an example of somebody who's pretty good at getting stuck. You know how to do this, no problem. A bunch of people in the office going, yeah, you're the one. Come on, who here is good at getting stuck? Come on, I need an example. Well, all these doctors are being nominated by their staffs. Isn't that interesting? Come on, I need somebody here. Raise your hand, volunteer. I guess maybe I should just go out and select somebody, huh? You got a volunteer. Give him a hand. Yes, indeed. Dr. David. Okay, Dr. David. Are you good at getting stuck?
Pretty good.
Pretty good. Staff is saying yes. Great. Why don't you have a seat? And since you're in this position, would you give me permission to have one of your staff members totally humiliate you in public?
Absolutely.
No. Actually, that's not what we're going to do, but I just want to see how far we can push you. I would like a staff member here who would like to be able to break the doctor's pattern, who in the past maybe has not been real good at it. So the doctor was stuck, you weren't able to get through. They're all going, oh, I am doing it. Are you giving him permission? Is this a safe environment for them? Okay. So who here is willing to do it on the staff? Come on, pick somebody quick. You have 5 seconds before I pick somebody. 5, 4, 3, 2. Somebody who's outrageous and fun. Here comes one. Give her a hand. Yes, indeed. Oh, come on, give her a real hand. Jerry, do you have my stuck breaking device? Okay. Great. All right. Here's what we're going to do. 3-person exercise. Watch this because you guys are going to duplicate it. Person A, person B, person C. I am the meta person. Meta person's job is quality control in the exercise. I'm just going to observe. Your job is to get into a totally stuck state where nobody's going to break through. He's obviously good at this, goes right to it. I mean no feedback. You're not getting verbal feedback, nothing. You're just going to stay in that one state and not change at all. Sparky, your job is to break his state in as many different ways as you can. So our job is person C. We're all going to be person C in this exercise, okay? Our job is to notice when he changes, state even slightly. Do we have to get him like laughing hysterically to change state, yes or no? No, even if he changes slightly, like he changes breathing, that's all we need, because if we can break a state, I can show you once you broke it how to get him where you want him to go. But we got to get him out of that stuck place. How many follow me on this process? So her job is to break a state. Now, she just does typical ways of doing it. Will it probably work, yes or no? No, so she's going to have to get incredibly flexible in her approach and do some bizarre, outrageous, weird, gross, funny things to get through to him. She could also change his state by using his what? Yeah, physiology. No, not what you said. No, that's not what I said. Okay. So your job, our job is to tell her when it changes, and as soon as he changes, she's to try and find another way to change him. He goes back in a stuck state, and she tries to change him again. Now, what may happen is she gets stuck doing the same thing over and over again, in which case we need to break her state and make her come up with something more unique. Our goal for the exercise is for this person to develop lots of ways to change this person's state. Okay? How many follow the exercise? Great. Then sit up in your chair with lots of energy. And Sparky, begin. And when you guys see a change, immediately say it out loud, there's a change. And here's a microphone, too, if you're going to say anything so we hear it. Okay, no, you don't want any change at all. You want to, like, you're giving her no feedback. Was that a state change, yes or no? Would you see Dr. Frank like that and he turned his head like that? Was that a state change? Sure. And by the way, sometimes that's all it takes is you change your voice tone from a normal conversation to, Doctor, what? Would that change them? So that is a definite thing that would work. Microphone closer if you say anything and use it, whatever else you want to do. Go ahead and change it. You back in the stuck state? Good, he's back because he's not responding to me. That was the right answer.
Do you need my help? Is there anything I can do to support you?
Try something else. Your job is keep this person going. Try something else. But that isn't working. Try something else. Come on.
Do you need to
Did that work, yes or no? Yes, it did. Yes, it did. It changed his breathing and his face very slightly. Okay, it wasn't exciting, but it did affect him. It did break him. Now, it wasn't as strong as it could be. Let me offer you a principle that may be very useful. Listen carefully. The threat of an attack is even greater than attack itself. Maybe you can use that principle, Sparky. Go for it.
the threat of an attack?
Go for it, Sparky. Come on, something else. Try something, quick. And by the way, Sparky doesn't, how many would agree Sparky doesn't know what to do? Sparky is in what kind of state? Stuck. Okay, Sparky, come on. You can do it, babe. Okay.
David.
Did it work, yes or no?
He's not ticklish.
Well, that began to change him. Has she got one that works? Give her a hand. Good job. Give her a hand. Okay, back in a stuck state, you're doing well. Do something else. Back in a stuck state. Try something else. Be outrageous. Did it work, yes or no? Yes, it did work. It wasn't a major change, but it got a change. It made progress. Okay, what else? Try something else. Quick, go, go, go. Now she's stuck. She's starting to do the same thing. Try something he doesn't expect. That work? Give her a hand. Give her a hand. Good job. Stay there. Try something else. Back in the stuck state. Try something else.
Is that what we need to remove your clothes? Loosen you up a little bit? Undress him? Yeah.
Quick, try something else. Try something else. Ask him. Say, is that a booger in your nose? Did it work? Yes or no? Be gross. Do something you don't expect. It does it in a heartbeat. What if the next time somebody comes in there raging the office and you go, excuse me, but is that a booger in your nose? It'll change your state in a heartbeat, trust me. One more time, stuck state.
I know something that'll make you look good. Let's try this. No, not this one. Let's try this one. This might change your state.
Was he pretty good at staying stuck on that one? He's really concentrating. What kinds of things have worked so far for her? What kinds of things have worked? Physical movement, being gross, what else? Touching, okay? What else? Try something else. Come on, come on, come on. Do something you would never do. Do something you would never do. The threat of an attack. Did it work? One more, one more. Give them both a hand. Give them both a hand. Thank you. Thank you. Now, thank you. Now, notice what kind of things work. What works? Outrageous, gross, sexual. Yeah, sexual works because in our culture, boy, you're not supposed to do those things. Any kind of threat even. What you have to do is get through, though. You got to first scratch their record. You gonna follow what I'm saying on this? The more outrageous you are, as long as you have rapport. Obviously, you got to have rapport. Okay? How many people willing to be playful and outrageous, not hurt the other person, but willing to let other people be playful and outrageous with you in the exercise? Raise your hand if you're willing to do that, nice and hot. If you're not willing to do that, raise your hand, so we can come and break your pattern. Great. And here's how it's going to work. Listen carefully. Person A goes into a stuck state. By the way, A, this is a good exercise for you to stay focused, isn't it? Because it's pretty tough because they're going to be trying to change your state. B, your job is to be flexible. Your job is to keep changing. C, your job is to have sensory what? And to tell B, you changed them. It wasn't a big change, but here's what you did. I noticed this change, or the breathing change. That was good. Back in state, do it again. And your job is to mark B, because B will make it stuck and keep touching, touching, touching. Now get them to do something visual, right? Now get them to do something where they do a threat. Maybe now do something that's more auditory. Get them to be as many different ways as possible so they're really successful. Was she really successful in changing them, yes or no? Absolutely. And what will happen is maybe you won't do all these in your office, but what will happen is you'll have some you'll learn and remember that'll be there, or you'll threaten to do them in the future. And people will start to crack up, and you'll be able to change their states. Would this be useful, yes or no?